Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, Australian award-winning author of Kick Butt Heroines and Delicious Men in Dark Romantic Worlds. And I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking to a best-selling author who is well-loved and known for her revenge, nostalgia, and heartfelt moments. We are talking to the one and only Morgan Elizabeth. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm so good. I am so excited that you're on. I am vibing with your energy. I am matching your energy. So I'm like, let's go.
It's also very early for you, so I'm very shocked by that.
The enthusiasm.
As someone who is not a morning person, it's like very impressive.
Thank you. I mean, there is pre-workout in the system already. There's coffee in the system already.
There
This
you
is
go.
not organic. Let me tell you.
That'll
But
do it.
take me back to the start of your journey. I would love to know why you started writing and how you found publishing for the first time.
Yeah. So I went to school for journalism, which I feel like is very common, at least in like American authors. They're like, yeah, I was a common journalism major. And I'm like, same. And I right out of college, I got married, and within 3 months, I got pregnant with my first son. So I was a stay-at-home mom. I quit my job because in the US, childcare is really expensive. And I was working a nonprofit at the time, and those two would not mesh. So I was stay-at-home mom for a long time. And then I had a side, I did like, had like a blog and I did all that kind of thing. And in 2020, I had my last kid, my daughter, and it was a pandemic and we were all locked down. And as we all do, we all have mental breakdown. And we were moving in early 2021 and I found an old outline that I'd written for a book and it was a bunch of like note cards. And we were moving and I was like, you know what, let me just try this. Like, whatever, let's just try writing this. And it ended up being my first book, The Distraction. And after that, it kind of became my whole personality. So yeah, that was that. It's been, I just always say like I wanted spending money because I was a stay-at-home mom and I was like, I can get like coffee money. And now it's my full-time job. So it's kind of crazy, but it's been a blast.
So when was the first year that you published The Distraction?
2021. It was
2020.
October 2021. And then a psychopath again, I published 3 books that year, October, November, December, and I do not recommend it. Like 0 stars. I was very stressed, but it taught me a lot about, I feel like I got all of the bumps and bruises of publishing out of the way because I had no one like looking out for me yet. Like I feel like debut authors right now, they're so on top of it and they're like promoting and they're doing all the things. And I didn't have to worry about that, which was a blast. So yeah, don't recommend it, but I did do it.
There is a sense of naivety as well going into self-publishing too, because
Yeah.
you don't know until you know. And then after you've published a couple of books, you start to notice a bit of a snowball effect, which I'm curious as to when you noticed yours. And you realize it's a business and you have to shift
Yeah.
things. And then also coming out of that pandemic, the demand that is now of marketing, social media, all of those things. So when was the snowball effect for you? That moment where you were like, oh, like I have a demand for my books. I'm a real author.
Yeah. So I think it was my third book came out, and I remember being like on a really tight deadline, obviously, because I was writing a book a month. Again, I cannot do that now to save my life. I don't know how I did it. I genuinely am like baffled when I think back. I'm like, how did I manage that? Couldn't tell you. But I think it was after that one, and I remember I took a month break. I published it in October. It was like December, I think it was like December 31st. It might have been like it was like the last Tuesday of that year. And I didn't publish again until February 22nd. And that's when I got like my first real cover. I got a cartoon cover, which was like at the time, it felt like an I've made it moment. I was like, you guys, I have a real cover. This is not a Fiverr cover anymore. I had like a real editor. It wasn't just me and Grammarly against the world. And I remember like doing that and I was like, oh, this is real. And until that, my husband was like super supportive all the time. He was like, everything you make goes right back in because he started to see it too. He was like, oh, so you can actually, this is not just spending money. This is like, you can live off of this. We could live off this, not just me. And he was like, everything goes back in. You're gonna get a real editor, we're gonna get covers, and then that kind of just, and now my expenses are like astronomical.
Yeah.
But it built up to that. And I think that that was probably when I felt I was like, oh, so this is a real thing that can be a real career, which I think like when you're a kid, especially like when I was a kid, being an author was only trad. So indie wasn't even a thing. So when you realize that indie is a thing, it's interesting.
It's mind blowing. And I feel like there's so much that perhaps that isn't spoken about is the fact that yes, we're building this author career and we're publishing these incredible books, but also we have to personally grow to match that level because when you are, as you said, the expenses start growing more so
Yeah.
out of our comfort zones as well, because there is never a guarantee of what will return as well. And
Yeah.
that's the risky part of this business. And so you have to become really comfortable with yourself at certain levels and have conversations with yourself to back yourself up. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of curious as to what some of the conversations were with you. Was it more so the outside validation and support with your husband, which I absolutely adore him? Thank you like so much because I'm sure people are like, thank you, husband, thank
Yeah.
you. What were some of the conversations you had to have with yourself to achieve that?
I think there was like a definitely a hurdle of like I like not deserve like deserve is like it's such a strange word to use in like a career, but like I I can justify these expenses at the beginning where I was like, do I really need a fancy cover? Do I really need an editor? Me and Grammarly, we're like this at this point. And it it starts to become one, you look at your reviews, right? It's like you see like, oh, it would have been much better if she had, I see a lot of typos. It's me. I don't know how to spell to save my life. So that's a problem. So things like that, you start to see like things that like are being pointed out to you. And that's when you start getting DMs and they're like, do you have an editor? Because I could be your editor. And you're like, okay, that's crazy to say to me. I don't even know you. Which is crazy now because I get them still. And I'm like, yeah, no, I have like three people now. Like I have, it goes through like such a chain at this point. But even now, like I started doing like producing my own audiobooks, which the expense of that is crazy. And that was like a really hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And even now, like it's one of those things that it's like even that is like a long term. You just kind of have to like know that at some point it's gonna make sense. Um, but yeah, it was hard to be able, especially as like a stay-at-home mom, to be like, yeah, you can spend X amount of money that seems astronomical on something that is worth it. Um, but also part of it is like, you know what everyone is doing. If you're at this level, you know what people at this level are doing, and you're like, maybe if I try that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also like looking at what you can afford.
100%. I am curious about the audiobook decision because there really is two routes to this,
Yeah.
which is one contracting a audiobook company. Obviously, you receive less, but you're not covering those upfront
Yeah.
costs. Or you can also produce them yourself. As you said, it is so expensive and it is something that seriously has to be thought on because of that expense. And it is often such a long weight of
Yeah.
gratification, I want to say. So, what made you decide to go down that route?
Yeah. So I have a few audiobooks that are through companies. And it really if a book takes off, right? And if they have the audio rights and you see that invoice or like your payout and it's like we made this much and you made this much and you're like, I'm sorry, what? It's especially as an indie where like I'm not trad, so I make all of my money. It all goes to me, myself, and I. That can be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And I was like, I see it as an investment in my future. It's not even an investment in right now. It's an investment in my long-term career. And I think that once you sit in it and you're like, okay, so I'm in this for the long haul, that's when you can kind of like swallow that pill a little easier of this is going to be income. And as an audiobook girl, I will not read a book until it's on. So it's been nice to be able to offer ALCs now because I'm finishing now, ideally. My audio is done, by release day. So I can do dual release. And for my ARCs, I can offer ALCs, which gets people reading them faster, gets them. I also think audiobooks are a little bit more forgiving. So that's also a plus for me. But yeah, it's been really fun. It's been a learning curve because you have to work with ACX, and that's a new beast that I wasn't used to. But yeah.
Thank you for sharing that as well, because it
Oh
really
yeah.
it's a good luck.
Yeah, no, and that's what especially when you get the invoice like 2 months before the book even comes out. And then you're just sitting there like, I hope that this does well. And then, you see it and it starts to trickle in and you're like, okay, so like if this happens this long, I'll be able to pay it off in this amount of time. And I think that also I'm excited now that I'm gonna have a whole series of audios that I've done myself. I can package them as like package deals, which I think will help. Yeah, it's been a fun experience.
I love that though, and I'm glad that it is working out and paying off for you, because
Yeah.
it's always scary to the
Yeah.
unknown. I would really love to talk about your new release actually. So Never
Yeah.
Worse is the third book in the Evergreen Park series. So did you tell us a little bit about that, but also was there anything different about writing this particular book for you?
So this series I was not supposed to write. I was just read a different book. And then I had as one does, I had a mental breakdown. And I remember I got like, I don't know, like 15,000 words in, and I just was not jiving with it. And I remember like, that's that like sound from Kim Kardashian where like it's like, hey, how are you? And she's like, it's great. Can you talk? And she's like in tears. I went downstairs to talk to my husband. He's like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, oh, everything's great. Can I talk? And I just started like hysterically crying as one does. And he's like, just write a different book. You are not going to be happy. Just write a different book. So I, of course, was like, it's not that easy. And he's like, it could be. And then I went through my notes app where I have all of my insane book ideas. And I scrolled until I was like, oh, that I could vibe with. And that ended up being Passenger Princess, which, spoiler, the title came first. I said that would be a fun book title. And then I wrote a book around it. But then I knew that she was going to have two other friends, and that ended up being the Evergreen Park series. And it ended up ending and Never Been Worse, which was fun. And yeah, I always knew that it was going to be Harper. Wasn't sure which guy she was going to get with. I feel like that's kind of par for the course where you're just like, let me just see what happens until we get there. And then it worked out really well. I've never done a Marriage of Convenience before, so I knew I wanted one of those. And I knew at some point I wanted to write like a Taylor Swift Reputation album coded book, which is what this ended up being. So it was really fun. It was just silly, goofy, fun times. I love a down bad guy, and that's all I wanted to write. Yeah.
So we're going to put a damper on this conversation, but it's a conversation that I love having on here because
Yeah.
we really do need to be having more of it. And that is the mental breakdowns. That is the fatigue.
Oh,
That
all
is,
the time.
and let's discuss it more because it needs to be normalized.
No, I think you're so right. Like, I think that there is this because it's social media world, right? Where we live in this world of, hey guys, I'm so excited. I did this, blah, 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 blah. And everyone is so happy. I'm
Yeah.
like, I love that for us. Personally, I drop off the face of the earth for 3 weeks until my PA has to send me text and say, hey, just need a sign of life,
Yeah.
a single sign of life. And I'm like, hey girl, I'm alive. Not well. Let's not sound like I'm still alive and I'm barely breathing. That's like me when I'm in the pits of hell. Like it's like I'm just I texted my PA, gosh, I think it was last week. 'Cause I was in my final edits of this and I texted her and I said, hey, I was in my dev edits, which like I don't know about you, when I do dev edits, I get to the face. Like, everything I take it personally, and I know it's not supposed to, but I'm like, oh, so this is terrible.
Yeah.
And my dev editor's like, no, it's supposed to make you better. And I'm like, oh, so you hate it. Everything about this sucks. Okay, I can't. Why am I writing books? So I was having a rough day, and I texted my PA, and this was probably at 1 o'clock, and I sent her a text, and I didn't even think about it, which is like the sign of true friendship. I'm like, hey, I am not doing well mentally. Can I please pay you to beta read this? Because I don't know if it sucks or not, and I don't know if it's me, and I don't know. And then I texted her like 4 hours later and I was like, hey, so Alex made me go for a walk and I do feel better. I do. I went outside. I got some fresh air. I do feel a little better. I still want you to beta read it. And like she texted me and she's like, I'm 75% through. It's great. I love it. It's amazing. It's fun time. But yeah, it's rough. You're a critic of one at the end of the day. And it's rough.
100%. I mean, I was going to ask you what are some of the things that you do to make sure you don't get there, but it sounds like you're not there
Oh
yet.
no, I don't. I get there every time. I get there every time. And you know what? There's also the world is a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
I have 3 kids, so like no matter what, it's always that kind of chaos. We're just getting out of seasonal depression mode over here because it's winter. So you know what? Sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better. Um, I have found I usually do have one in February. February is usually the month for it. But yeah, I think it's having a support system who like A understands and is like, no, it's cool, but like you also life goes on is really, really important. And like letting yourself to have a good old cry sometimes is like really important.
I completely agree. And as you were saying, like messaging your PA or whether it be another author or whatever,
Yeah,
whoever that person is for you, because managing what this business can be or is can be high pressure, high stress, especially if you're trying to get ahead of the game and you're trying to stay relevant and having rapid releases and things like that. Like it's very overwhelming. And when you are only one person, it is a lot to take on. And even as we try to, I say balance because I'm no good at it either. I'm still trying, but just be, it's, I've been saying this for 10 years. So I'm just,
yeah,
it is what it is. But I think it's really important to make sure that you have that person and you have those support teams in place, and that when you really do get to that critical point, as you said, you went for a walk or something like that.
yeah,
I definitely think that's really, really important. So thank you for opening up about that
yeah.
as well, because
No, I'm just talking about my breakdowns. It's fine. I'm
like
like, I
each and
just
every one.
yeah, no, well, I think that like in especially in the author world, I think there is it is very much a mask of social media where it's like, look at how happy this is, and I'm doing this fun thing. And then you start looking at your author friends and you're like, why is everyone so happy and I'm miserable?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
meanwhile, your author friends are just as miserable. Like
Yeah.
we're all having our moments, but it's really hard. Like that's when imposter syndrome starts to kick in. And like it's just
This will be the caption, the title of this is all authors are
yeah,
miserable.
we're all miserable. Like it's and like there are moments like obviously most of the time it's a blast. I always say like I'm so lucky. I have the coolest job in the world. Like I, it's like a dream job that I never thought was possible. And I'm so grateful. But also like I'm the main breadwinner in my house. So like I'm looking at it, when you're indie, you also can see your numbers every day. And you just reload that thing all day long. And it's rough. Yeah, it's a lot of like head games and mental. My friend the other day was like, hey, so maybe we get on psychologytoday.com and we look for a new therapist and we like just just for thoughts. And I'm like, look, I don't know about that. That's a little extreme. Guys, I just admitted that I'm having a breakdown. Let's just baby steps.
Like for tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that I'm curious about that I have found that has helped in this situation massively. So for myself, this year is my year of delegation. And so when you do get to a certain degree where you have become, full-time author, and this is not for everyone right now, obviously budget is an important thing, and if you are only sustaining yourself in the books that you're producing, you're not yet there. But even if you get an assistant for an hour or two a week on those tasks that really drain you, it can help phenomenally. So
Big
I'm
time.
wondering as to what the things were that you really wanted to outsource just so
Yeah.
you were a little bit less miserable.
So Ray is my like right hand, and everyone knows like I just call her to like yap about stuff. And but she makes sure I answer my emails. And I like as someone with like really high anxiety and ADHD, things like DMs and texts and emails are like my nightmare for whatever reason. I just can't tackle those. So she either She has her own email. So like she gets CC'd on literally everything. So if it gets to a point where I'm just like, I've hit a breaking point, I'm not going to reply to things, she will just go in and like start replying to things, which is amazing. Same thing with DMs. Like I try to stay on top of my Instagram DMs, but sometimes they just get super overwhelming and I can't fathom opening them. So she does that. I started outsourcing my newsletter to her. So I write a blurb and then she does the formatting and sending it and scheduling and all of that because it's things that I found myself putting off, that I knew I needed to be doing, but I just found myself putting off and being like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it the next day. And she's very organized and she'll do that. My Instagram posts so that it's not just insanity. She manages those, she organizes that. So yeah, like things like that. I also have a girl who Kayla is helping me. She's doing my Pinterest and my YouTube shorts because I'm trying to like diversify because TikTok is not, you never know what's gonna happen with that. So yeah, it's just it's I hand off things that I find myself saying I don't want to do this, or like I'll do this tomorrow, I'll do this the next day. The things that like keep coming back up on your to-do list, that's the first thing I outsource, especially if it's something that's going to make an impact and like move the needle. I think that that's what I like. Social media is easy, but also like it should also be you. Like I hate to say that, like no one wants to hear that. I don't. But I was in social media and like SEO for quite some time. So I know that like building the relationship with readers is so important and only you can do that. As
100%.
miserable as it is.
100%. And I really agree with that too. Like just find the things that don't bring you as much joy. Because
Yeah.
the thing is, there's all of that is full-time work on its own, let alone trying to write and produce books at the same time. I would actually really love to know your writing process. Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Are you singing Kumbaya every time you're writing? What?
Um, so it's a thought and a prayer. Like that is it also doesn't help that I most of my books come from like one very, very small idea. And I go, ooh, there's a book there somewhere. And either I add it to a list or sometimes it's a title like Passenger Princess. Tis the Season for Revenge was a TikTok I saw, that was like something like when your boyfriend says he's too busy, he breaks up with you because he wants to focus on work, so you marry his boss. And I was like, genius, love that. There's a book right there. So sometimes it's something like that. And then when it's time to write my next book, I go through that list. If I already don't know like what it's going to be, I go through that list. I'm like, what sounds fun? What do I actually want to do right now? And then I'll go and I'll give myself a loose outline. Lately, I've been trying to get better at doing like a full outline, but I don't go too crazy because I know I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
I just finished a book and I was looking at how much words were deleted because like I don't delete them because God forbid deleting words is like a crime to me. And it was like 30,000 that was in like another folder. And I was like, oh, that's why this book took so long to write. So yeah, that is the curse of not having like a really solid outline. But I just kind of like let things go where they take me. So.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious then, with that particular book that you have the excess 30,000 words, what do you then do with those 30,000 words? Are you still using them as like marketing
So
magnets or?
sometimes if it's like something I think could add, it can be a bonus scene, it can be something else. Sometimes it's something I cut because it literally didn't make sense. And it's just, sometimes there's a scene that you're like, I want to write this scene. So
Yeah.
you're like, I'm gonna make it fit here. And then at some point you have to go, I hate to say it, it's not gonna fit here. So there's times those where I'm like, I know where I can use this in another book. So I'm just gonna like keep her over here. And sometimes some of it is just terrible stuff that I'm just like, not like offensive, just like it's not good. And I had to cut it because of that. Or it's, like repetition because I don't outline that well. It's like saying the same thing 7 times. My cat is literally going crazy over there. I don't know why she's turned the book to them. But yeah, so sometimes I'll be able to use it. If it's a spicy scene, that's a bonus scene. I
Yeah.
don't care. I don't care if it doesn't even make sense anymore. I will make it make sense. But yeah, and then that's my email opt-in. So like the funnel begins all over. But yeah, sometimes it's just like cutting out. I think like as you grow as an author, you get a little more comfortable with cutting things where
Mm.
you're like, I have to do this in order for this to be a good book. It still hurts really bad,
100%.
but it
So,
is what it is.
how long does it take you roughly to write a book?
So if I'm on a timeline, like if I'm doing things the way I'm supposed to do, it takes me about 2 months. I
Okay.
write pretty quick. It's my full-time job, and I do a lot of sprints.
Yep.
Um, and that helps.
Mhm.
But if it's like pulling teeth, then it can be a lot longer. But I found if I have a deadline and someone else is relying on me for that deadline, then I can meet it. If it's just a self-imposed deadline with no real repercussion, I won't meet it.
Yeah.
So I've been like scheduling things, like audio's been helpful, believe it or not, because I can be like, I need my final done by this date, which means this person needs it by this date, which means this person needs it by this date. Um, so it's like a constant stress, but we're working on it.
Do you know what though? Some people, it's just figuring out what works best for you.
Yeah,
Like I work best under pressure, unfortunately, even though it's
yeah.
stresses me out. So, but if I don't have a deadline, then it'll just
But
create.
I'm gonna get on a work co-working call and yap for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And that's what's gonna be. So
I
it's you win some, you lose some.
I would love to know what advice you have for any authors who are looking at writing seasonal books. So
Yeah.
Thanksgiving or Christmas. What advice do you have?
Um, so I love a good seasonal book. I was supposed to be born on Christmas. So I love like my birthday is 8 days for Christmas. I love a good Christmas book. I think it's in my blood. Um, I always say, and it's because so before this, I was a mom blogger. So I would do a lot of seasonal stuff and I would do like seasonal recipes and like cutesy things. And the rule of thumb was always when the local stores start putting things out, your content should already be out. Like it should already be out because people that's when they're going to start searching it. So when Target puts up their Christmas decorations, your Christmas book should already be out. Which is why I publish Christmas books in October. But yeah, I think that like you have to like plan almost a year ahead because it's easiest to like think of your concept during the season because that's when you're like, oh God, I should have written this book. It would have been so good and I could release it. And that's when you start to be like, I bet I could really write a book in 2 weeks. You can't. I mean, maybe you can. I can't. Um, so yeah, I think that that's really important, like to plan it, like not you don't have to plot it, but like plan the concept ahead of time. And that way you can kind of like have an idea brewing and that way when the season comes you're already there because you're going to be writing a Christmas book in July. And that's just that's just the reality of it unless you're working a full year ahead, which God bless. It could never be me. So yeah, I always say like just kind of like get your ideas out during the season because sometimes you'll be in the season, you're like, oh, would have been a good thing to add, but you can't think of that in July. So yeah, I think it's just like planning ahead and then also looking for other authors during that time season of who can do like giveaways with you and releasing early so that you get on like the social media roundups or at least announcing early. That really helps because like the Christmas girlies are posting their Christmas book like roundups in October.
Yeah.
Um, November 1st, and like you're almost late. So yeah, it's like being ahead of the season, whereas with normal contemporary, it's a summer book. You can release it in June, and that's fine. A Christmas book, a Halloween book, I would imagine you have such a small window where people are like, some people will read it after, but that big bulk of people, they want to read it at Christmas time or whatever season. Um, so yeah, it's just like being ready for the season.
Absolutely. All about preparation. We got to
Yeah.
love this industry. What what has been, would you say, the most challenging thing for you in this career, but also your greatest achievement?
Yeah. So I hit number one in the Amazon store, like unexpectedly. And that was sick. That was like tis season for revenge, like did the thing. The worst part is every book after that because you're like, you know what? I did it once. I did it this one time, and why can't I do it every time? And I really truly think unless you're like the Laura Pavlov or you're an Elsie Silver or you're like one of those big names, it is a combination of like really, really hard work and luck. And no one wants to hear that. No, really, and I hate to even say it. No one wants to hear that it is a good dose of luck and
100.
like timing and you can't plan for it. That no one really, top 100 feasible, like that's where it's like you do the really, really hard work and you do lots of the promoting and you time it well and all of that. And like, you've got it. Number one is hard. And I didn't, and I think because I did it, like not anticipating it, like it was I don't know. It was like I had written a bunch of books, but again, I was like, it was almost exactly my 1 year anniversary of publishing. And I was just like, I don't know how this happened. This is crazy. And then I was like, oh, that's it. So I'm in now. Like I am Elsie Silver now. And it's just not the reality of it. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And then also having a successful series and then starting a new series is very daunting. But yeah, I think that's like a real big mind fuck to just be like on top of the world and then publish again, especially if you weren't planning on it, because then you don't plan what your next book should be,
Yeah.
which was what I did. Um, so yeah, it's tough. It's doable, but it's tough, and it was really cool. It was really fun. Um, but yeah, it is a bit of a mind trip. Any level of success is a bit of a mind trip because you're like, oh, I can do this again. And if you don't, then it's like why not?
Yeah.
Hard to explain to people because they're like, but you did it. And you're like, I know that. I do. Feasibly, I do know that. And I'm very proud of myself for that. I need to do it again. And like every time, or else my brain is going to think I'm a loser. And it's a hard hill to like get over. And I'm still working on it, but
Sense. So I can relate to this to a degree. And again, I think it's something that we should discuss more as me and my co-author, should I say, I think we hit 25 on one
yeah.
of the releases, which is awesome. Like, and same thing, we weren't exactly expecting that, but when you have that element of luck or viral, whatever it may be that comes into play, you're just like, oh, awesome. And every release since that we've had that hasn't gone below that, we're just like driving, driving, driving. We're like,
Yeah.
why can't we control this situation? And this entire beast of an industry is something that just can't be controlled. And it's never become more apparent to me than recently that you really, and I hate saying it as well, you have to pay to play. And
Yep.
that is a hard pill to swallow, especially for authors who are not yet in that budget range. And I want to reiterate too, we have not always been in particular budget ranges. Like we have been putting all of our money back into, just doing the back catalog, slowly building and plugging along. And so when you do keep leveling up, I think you get to a new expectation of yourself. And so when you do hit really well or the best book that you've got, you always want that. You always want to challenge that. You always want to be better than that. And the reality is even when you make it on the top of the world, it doesn't mean you're going to keep hitting it. And so that is when I think sometimes we have to try to remember to be consistent, because I know that sometimes that franticness kicks in and you're like, okay, but I'm going to overspend on my budget because surely it's going to work out. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's up to like each individual, but it is a normal thing. Not that we want it to be a normal thing, of course,
No, but yeah.
every time, but like it is okay. And it's just, it's the game we play, unfortunately.
And it's hard. Like, is it I think, and I can't speak for like other professions. Authoring, it's because it's like it's so solo and it's so dependent on your own skill. It's a constant like
Yep.
it's you're in your head all the time. And then when you start to add like rankings and numbers and like you hear people going bank over rank and like, yes, absolutely slay. But also I am like I am conceited. I want to be able to screenshot it and I want to be like, look what I did.
Yes.
Um, and like I really recommend like having people around you who can like talk you back down to earth. Cause like my husband was like, like like Never Been Worse did amazing. We love it, but it was a third in series, and third in series is never going to do as well as first in series. Like it's just not. There's two other books that we're going to have to read to get through, and that's like again, it's a tough pill to swallow. And my husband's like, I've been trying to like hold your hand for the last like month because you're like Morgan. He's like, it was never going to hit number one. I'm like, but it could have, and he's like, I understand that. I also know that that wasn't like, and like, yeah, but it could have, like, because again, like I put like extra legwork in. I was like, this is going to be it. This is going to be the one that skyrockets me, that makes me Elsie Silver. Like that's it. I'm here for the long run. And it is there's you have to have people in your corner that can be like, do you see how many Goodreads reviews you've had in the first week? Like you've never had that many. That's amazing. Do you see this? Like the amount of tags you're getting. That's amazing. You've never had that. There's things that, especially when like we were talking about like outside impact influences of things that like are completely out of your control. Um, like I know like a lot of people are like getting rid of KU and the boycott, and that's amazing. But like indie authors do feel that.
Yeah,
And that's something that we don't have a control over. So
correct.
you have to look at other sources. Like I have like a shop, a signed bookshop, and those orders have skyrocketed. And I'm like, that's amazing. And you have to have other factors to be able to look and be like, okay, I'm not a fan. It's hard. But yeah, when the higher you get every time, you want to do it every time. And
And
it's just,
I think you actually make a really good point there too. Multiple income streams. I am a big believer in this. I was so unfortunate to have my Amazon account terminated years ago. And so that, yeah, girl,
that's the
mental
nightmare.
breakdown, top mental breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with that said, everything happens for a reason. I had the same thing happen with my social medias. You reset, you do what you need to do. It wasn't as bad as the Amazon thing. I just got burnt
Yeah.
already from that, and I was like, I can't cry about this again. But the thing that taught me the most was one, you actually can depend on your friends around you. You can ask for help. I know we're so in this, we need to look like we have our shit together, but the reality is most of us barely feel like we do have it. And so when you ask for help or you ask for support, you will be surprised by how well received it is. And if you feel like you don't have that, you can contact me. I'm here for you. And recently, I've actually re-put my books into KU in the last 2 years, and that was a risky business because obviously I've already been burnt by Amazon.
Yeah.
But that's when multiple other income streams, as you said, you have audiobooks, you have
Mhm.
options with book sales, paperback sales through your website. Patreon is a good source as well. If
Yeah, I have a Patreon. It's amazing. It's wonderful.
so good. Let's dive into that after. So the reason why I say that too is because I was so intimidated by Patreon.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, surely there's not enough readers who are going to like want anything extra from me. And that is the biggest lie anyone can tell themselves because
Yeah, absolutely.
and I love that we learn these things. Like what we think doesn't necessarily have value is a complete often a lie. And so it may be a slow build, but there is demand out there. And so if you're willing to put the time and investment in, you will be surprised by those things. And I just wanted to make sure that I had other bits of income in case something happens with Amazon, in case something happens with Kindle, whatever it may be. And it's interesting that you mentioned the boycotting, but then you've also noticed a significant sales in your paperbacks on your website, which very much validate that reasoning. So I would like to talk about Patreon because I feel like it's one of those things that a lot of authors are becoming a lot more familiar with, the same as Kickstarter, but they just don't know where to start. So, what would be your advice around Patreon?
So I started my Patreon in December of 2021 when tis season took off because I wanted to send Christmas cards. Again, I'm a Christmas girl, right? So I was like, I want to send Christmas cards. How can I do this like without losing my ass, you know? And also like how to ask people for keep their addresses without being weird. So I said, hey, if you sign up for this Patreon at the time, I think it was $2.50. It was like the lowest tier that they would basically let me do. And I just wanted to cover the cost of whatever I was going to put in this Christmas card. And so I did that. And then I was like, I want to make this. When I was a kid, I was a member of the Mary Kate and Ashley fan club. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to just be like snail mail. Everyone gets bills in the mail. That's boring. So I started doing that. And then I built it to different tiers, and then I've scaled back tiers, and I've increased. You kind of, it's like kind of like a learning curve a little bit. Like even I had a tier for like NSFW art, but the way thing is are in US right now. Like I went on there, I was like, hey guys, I'm not comfortable sending spicy art to every state in the US right now. I'm in New Jersey where it's like pretty solid, but like I don't want to send it to Texas. I don't want to be dealing with that. So like and the thing is about Patreon is like it's people who love you and adore you and like really want to support you. So they're like, I don't care. They're like, that's fine. So yeah, I started as a way to send snail mail to people because there's an option where you can ask for addresses. So I do that. And now that tier is $5 a month where you can get snail mail occasionally. I don't say I'm going to do it every month because I know I can't trust myself to do it every month. I just started doing birthday cards every month. So I know their birthday month. So I send birthday cards. It's just like little fun things like touches to like make people feel special. And then they get first look at things. So cover reveals, narrator reveals, things like that they really want to see. Every once in a while I do a bonus scene, but I even backed away from that because I was like, I don't want to feel obligated to have to write more, especially if I'm already on a deadline. Like it's a lot of work. And then there's a tier for signed paperbacks. So they get new releases. Every time there's a new release, they get a signed copy. And I started doing that this time. I sent it about a week out so that they arrived before release day, which was really cool. It was like the first time I was able to do that. So that was fun. So it's basically almost like a content team,
Yeah.
but no requirement to post. So it's really fun. I was just talking to a couple people and I was like, I think I'm gonna do like what was that Amazon? They had like the chapters. It was like Wattpad.
I know what you're talking about.
Kindlevella. It took me a minute. I have a character that I haven't written a book for, but that I don't really, it would be the sixth in the series. So financially, putting everything behind the sixth in the series like does not make that much sense to me. But I was like, maybe I'll just do like a Kindlevella type. I'll plot it out really well and I'll post on Patreon. And then eventually I'll post it as a real book. So I'm like testing cool things like that. But yeah, I think it's really great. It's another monthly income. At the very least, it covers my expenses. Like it pays for my PA,
Yeah.
which is really helpful some months, you know. It's really fun. And they're people who love and adore you. So it's fun. I think it's really smart. I think more authors should do it. I've heard also using Discord the same way.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of Discord. I won't lie.
Me too.
I'm like, that's another platform I don't need.
Yeah. I'm like baby steps, baby steps.
Yeah.
What then is the big dream that you are chasing for your author career? What is the big goal?
I think so. I think that we all are like, I want to get picked up, right? Like, I think that that's like, and when again, it's hard when you're indie, right? Because I have friends who are trad and they're like, I tell them like how much I make or how much, you know, and they're like, what? So it does put a weird taste in your mouth where you're like, oh, so you guys are getting ripped off. Okay. So there's that. But I do want, you know what I mean? Like there is the world of I want to be in every bookstore. I want to walk into like whatever store. I want to walk into the big box stores and see my book there. So I think that's just like the dream. I have started getting translations, which has been like insane. And I started getting copies of those and like that's crazy. Like I just got a copy of my book in Italian the other day. I was like, I don't know what any of this says. I don't know what any of this means, but like it's super cool. Yeah, I think that like that or like, you know, I feel like everyone would love to see a movie of their own book. Just, you know, the big dreams of like cool stuff.
Yeah.
And again, I'm sure once you hit that level, you're like, yeah, well, this book got a movie, and every book I write since then should also get a movie. I'm sure it's the same. And you know, you'll never be happy. And I think that that's a really hard struggle to tell yourself, like, you're allowed to be happy
Yeah.
where you are. It's just not that easy.
Not right now.
Yeah, maybe like after I get that big book deal,
I love
after a major motion picture.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I encourage dream, the bigger the better. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
I do have speed dating with an author, so I've lit a
Yeah.
candle, created ambience. But
Love
basically
this.
what it is five rapid questions. Are you ready?
I, as ready as I could be.
Amazing. What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
If we're talking verbally, I was on a panel.
I know it's going to be bad already.
Okay, I was on a panel. Okay, it was my first signing, my first big signing. I don't know how I got on this panel. It was the Magic of Rom-Com at Steamy Lit, and I was on this panel. I was the only indie author with Allie Hazelwood, Christina Lauren, Mia Sosa, Farrah Heron. Okay, and Nikki Payne was moderating it. I'm sitting here. I don't know how I got here. I don't know what I did. I don't know how. I don't know. I don't know. Something happened, and I got here. And I'm sitting there, and there's the question, and it was, um, how do you make things funny? Okay, Allie Hazelwood, smart person, gives a wonderful answer. Everyone's giving wonderful. I go, I don't know. I just think like I have a lot of trauma, and that makes me funny. Girl, what? Everyone laughed.
Okay, I was like, was it silence or did people laugh?
It
Like,
was no, it was like a moment, and then people laughed, and I was like, oh God, that was a close.
like
That
oh,
was a close one. There was
just
another
exit left.
There was another where they're like, how do you guys worry, like figure out your foreign translation rates? Everyone's giving great answers. I go, I don't know. I've never done that. I don't know, guys. I don't know. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm just an idiot. So yeah, there's that. I could go all day with those. Once I told someone at a signing where I lived, like my literal street address. Why? Couldn't tell you. I'm a train wreck at
Your
all times.
liability is what you are.
Yeah, it's you either love it or hate it, and
Love it. Until you get
so
yourself
that's
into
it.
trouble and then we need to disassociate.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, I'm going to write about fictional people and forget everything I've ever done in my life.
Gosh, that's so good. What are the three words that best describe you?
I would like to say funny. It's one of those things where I think it's kind of, you know, funny, pink, and I don't want to say kind. I would like to assume I'm kind. I have three kids, so I'm like, the biggest thing is you're kind, guys. I don't care if you're stupid, just be kind. So we're gonna go with that. It's basically a rom-com.
I love it though. I also do love your aesthetic for your room, by the way.
Oh yeah, I very much lean into it. It's basically Pink and Taylor Swift, and that's as I don't have a pink shirt today because
Kind of
it was
reminds me of like a cubby house.
that's
Kind of.
that's my cat. That's for my cat. That's my
Oh,
cat's tree. There's a cardboard box because I was packaging things. And there's my little book cart, my decals from Etsy.
I love
Just
it. Such a vibe. What is the song that best describes you?
okay. So if you were to ask like me, like romantic life, I always say Mine by Taylor Swift because like that's a song that I always associate with my husband for the longest time. If we're gonna talk like You're on Your Own, Kid, I feel like can really embody. I obviously it's always a Taylor Swift song. Like it's an illness. I'm in the cult. But You're on Your Own, Kid, I think is always like. But my most listened to song in 2024 was Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. And I listened to it something like 300 times to the point where Spotify was like, so you're in the top 0.1% of people who've listened to that song worldwide. And I was like, oh, so I am mentally ill. Like that I'm unhealthy. So that's probably the answer. Who's Afraid of Little Old Me? I
Love.
feel like it goes with the revenge.
There's actually an author that I interviewed recently who had the same one that they.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I was like, I need to connect you two guys. I just can't remember who it was. But who has been your favorite character to write and why?
Um, so if we're talking, like I usually have like two answers. I love Ava from Passenger Princess because she literally does not give a fuck. And I personally identify with that. She's very funny and I love her. If we're talking personality and like so I have a character, her name is Gabby. She has ADHD and it's like crippling ADHD and it makes her who she is. And it very much is through the whole book talks about her struggle with it. And that was a personal experience. So that's one of my favorite characters just because of that.
I also love that your cat clearly has ADHD.
I know, literally. I'm always like, the lights are on, no one is home. I don't know what she's trying to attack, but
It doesn't matter. We don't ask questions.
exactly. I'm like, I don't know.
Unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about.
Okay. I gotta think on this one. A unique I can quote pretty much anything Taylor Swift, which I guess everyone would know about that. I'm like a jack of all trades of crafts, I feel like, where I'm just that person. I'm like, oh no, I've done that. Oh yeah, I've made that. I have like 18 crafts in the other rooms that are like half finished. That's probably it. I'm not really I pretty much just talk about I have kids, I have Taylor Swift and books and like
I mean, it's good life.
and my cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty boring.
No, that sounds like a good life. Are you joking? I have had so much fun having you on today. So let us know what do we need to be on the lookout for, what's coming out soon, and most importantly, where do we find you?
Yeah, so I'm at author Morgan Elizabeth on everything because I can't bear to have multiple usernames because it would drive me insane. I have my website is authormorganelizabeth.com. Everything is just Morgan Elizabeth. I'm very simple. I have my next release will come out in May. So I haven't like released much about that, but it's like a Jersey Shore summer romance. But yeah, that's me. That's it.
Well, we'll have to watch your space and see what you get up to because I'm waiting for the movie to come out. So keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Until next episode, guys, we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.